in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
We're back with Gene and Chris, and a fascinating sort of change of pace episode coming up. We'll talk to you about it very soon. Now, in last week's episode of After the Paracast, Chris was talking about solid developments in really doing UFO research. You know, for working with Mark D'Antonio and Mr. Trumbull, the famous special effects expert, on their project, and of course the San Luis Valley camera project. All this stuff to actually attempt to record events in progress and get real data, not just someone writing something down, I saw this, I saw that. We've got thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of those, and where have we gone? Speaking of After the Paracast, we've been getting a really good amount of positive comments about After the Paracast. So, Chris, would you tell our listeners, please, how they can hear it too?
This is a chance for you to get a version of the show that's got a little bit better quality audio. It's higher resolution audio, and it's the network commercials have been taken out. For a modest $5 a month, you can go ahead and get that commercial-free show. Plus, we do a half-hour show at the end of our regular show where we either continue the conversation or get into some areas that we don't normally talk about on the air, for instance. And you can get After the Paracast, like I said, for an extra for $5 a month. Or if you want to go for a year, it's $50. How much is it for 5 years, Gene? $175?
For 5 years, $175. So you're getting the equivalent of 18 months free of charge. And You have been very generous, my friend, because those who subscribe for a year or 5 years, what do they get?
They get a copy of my ebook, Stalking the Tricksters, which goes into a lot of areas that we're going to be covering today with Eric Wargo. So there it is. After the Paracast, we've graduated to the let your hair down, tell it like it is scenario there. And so tune in and sign up.
This is what makes the Paracast different from a lot of other radio shows. And I'm not going to rag on anybody because I think some people like Micah Hanks and other people are doing really remarkable work in this field. Micah Hanks is a young whippersnapper, and I always commend him for the work he does on the Graylian Report and everything. So there's a lot of good work out there. But we try to probe areas that we hope will have meaningful results, not repeat the errors of the past. Now, if you want to learn more about getting After the Paracast and the ad-free version of the show, go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. I'm just going to ask you to look at the instructions because it takes a couple of steps to make this happen. This is not an easy thing for us to do, and we had to go through a bunch of hoops to make it happen. What's also fascinating is the fact that our discussion forums cover a very, very wide range of subjects that sometimes you don't expect. And we'll get into our guest of the week a little bit of time. But, of course, the Roswell slide's getting a lot of play, and one of our friends of the show and frequent posters, Red Pill Junkie, is going to be there on May 5th, so we expect to get a report from him. But funny, one of the more active discussions relates to this episode, I think 1989, was it, Chris, where they had this woman reported being abducted by a UFO near the Brooklyn Bridge.
Right, the Linda Cortseal case, or Linda Napolitano, I think was the name they used.
That has been for 25 years.
Yep.
A pretty controversial case. Now, I'm looking at the book. Apparently, it's still available. Witness the True Story of the Brooklyn Bridge UFO Abductions. And some people feel that Linda made it all up. Other people say, no, something happened and we got to figure out what it is. And it gets more complicated because one of the ex-wives of Bud Hopkins, one Carol Rainey, did a documentary aiming to disprove it. Other people have gone back and said, well, no, the documentary contains lots of incorrect information. One of our regular posters, Sean Mears, who happens to be a close friend of these people, he has done an extensive amount of research into this case. I mean, amazing. He posts on our forums and says, here's 17 references for you to check. And each of those 17 references takes about an hour to read because that's how complicated this case is. Now, I don't pretend to know what happened there.
Well, I don't know, Gene, the whole thing about Paris de Cuellar, the Secretary General of the UN, inadvertently going by and seeing this, it has some elements to it that are just, I don't know, beyond head scratchers.
For example, this is New York City. Why so few witnesses? Unless, maybe they had something that clouded their minds that the aliens put forth. They're using their power like the shadow to cloud your mind so you can't see them. Actually, he said cloud men's minds, but, what about women? They couldn't see them either. You see the point here. There are questions, legitimate questions to ask. I guess the problem is that it's so replete with personal attacks, attacking Bud Hopkins' integrity, saying that he's a fool. He was fooled by Linda Cortiel or Linda Napolitano, whatever name you wish to use, that she fooled him. And I don't know. I don't think he was anyone's fool. I think he believed that there was a solid basis for this case. It may not be what we perceive it to be. The reality of abductions may be very different from what we expect based on the accounts, but that also takes us to our guests, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But again, that's a very, very popular discussion in our forums right now. The other, of course, is still global warming. That discussion on global warming, hundreds and hundreds.
Oh, it just never ends.
It's like, all right, already, even if you think that we have very little contribution to be made to global warming, that's mostly natural. Let's open the table here. That's what you believe.
Very, very few topics, Gene, on the forum bring out the cats and dogs and global warming. It's a constant source of heated debate, I think, would be a kind way of putting it.
But you see, even if you believe that most of it is natural, that we did a tiny bit of it, don't you want to have a better environment? Don't you think we should have less air pollution? How many people die or suffer serious illnesses because of air pollution in different parts of the world? Don't you want a cleaner world? Forget about whether you believe that we're contributing to global warming.
No.
Why not make it more environmentally safe? Is there any harm in that except for a bunch of oil billionaires who feel they can gain something out of it? That's a point. Maybe we'll get into that in after the Paracast this week. I don't know. Chris, would you tell our listeners about our guest?
I will. And I am really amazed at Eric Wargo's Nightshirt blog. It's really fascinating. Some of the subjects that he gets into. He's a science writer from Washington, D.C. He has a PhD in anthropology, and he's worked for all sorts of government organizations, conducting archaeology, psychology, neuroscience research. And he has a really insightful blog called The Nightshirt, all one word, thenightshirt.com. And I was made aware of him on the Paracast thread that people say, hey, you should have certain people on. They suggest guests in this thread. And I remember his name came up. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I was sent a link to an article that he had written about synchronicity and the possibility that we may be looking at this whole subject bass-ackwards. And today we're gonna be introduced to a very, very brilliant thinker. His work goes the width and breadth from sci-fi through all sorts of reality studies, and of course, as an anthropologist, he applies all these things in a very unique way. So we're going to have fun with Eric today, and hopefully this will be the first of several return visits with him.
The guest is Eric Wargo. Put your conceptions of reality at the front door. Leave them there because they're about to change. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on our distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and the Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Talk to a sales rep at iWeb.com. Use the promo code TechNightOwl for a special discount.
Friends, this is Alex Jones for MidasResources.com. For more than 15 years, I have exclusively used Midas Resources for all my precious metal needs. Whether it's bullion or collectibles you're looking for, Midas Resources is simply the best. I own my gold as a hedge against inflation. This Federal Reserve fiat currency could go the way of the Deutschmark and the Weimar Republic anytime. In these historically dangerous times, it makes sense to physically hold gold and silver. Midas already has some of the best deals in the industry. But if you give them a call and mention the radio special, they will give you a list of the day's super specials. Midas brokers are standing by to answer all your questions at 800-686-2237. They also have a lot of informative free literature explaining the opportunities and risk of holding precious metals. They are ready to answer your questions at 800-686-2237. Again, that's 800-686-2237.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100-foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Call 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
Ouch! My back is out again.
Hi, Dr. Ortman with Wellspring Spinal Care. If you're experiencing neck, mid, or lower back pain, this information is for you. One of the complaints that I hear is patients receive their typical adjustment, only having to repeat them as the pain returns. Putting the bones back in place is only half of the battle. At Wellspring Spinal Care, we have the entire solution. We use the NUCA approach, utilizing three-dimensional x-rays and gentle touch technology to deliver specific correction. We then design a custom nutritional supplement program which provides essential nutrients targeting the areas of concern. With a NUCA approach and proper nutrition, you'll be on your way to a faster and more permanent recovery. To get you on the road to wellness, visit drortman.com. That's drortman.com, or call us today, 952-303-9124. That's 952-303-9124. Wellspring Spinal Care, chiropractic done right.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
So, long time ago, I heard my first Robin Williams comedy presentation on HBO or something. He was doing his nightclub act. And one of the lines he says is, reality, what a concept. And that takes us to Eric Wargo, who is our guest this week. And we're going to take you to a new reality or realities. And it's going to be a fascinating journey. And I'm not pretending I know much about this, except that I have a reality I'd love to change. But, that's about it. Eric, welcome to the Paracast.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Now, let me ask you a really simple, basic, stupid question, and then we'll go on. And that is here. Can we depend on reality being a constant? that is predictable, that can be learned, or is it just a mishmash of all sorts of influences?
I'd say the latter. I really don't think that reality is a constant at all. And it very much depends on your point of view. I mean, that's an old idea, it's relativism basically, but I think it really operates on a very fundamental level. I think, there's this kind of popular notion of, the universe is kind of this glass football that, everything is sort of fixed and if you could just know every particle and position of every particle in the universe, you know all the outcomes. And I don't think there is such a thing. I don't think there's any one history or any one, reality unfolding. I think it just depends on your point of view.
Well, my point of view is, boy, if you look at the American pubic, as I like to refer to them, there is definitely there's a constant there. I think it's corn-fed, inbred, and brain dead for the most part.
Right.
I hate to sound like that, but boy, there's millions of people walking around in a constant, I'll underline that word, constant state of waking coma. Other than that, it's a pleasure speaking with someone that actually has a head on their shoulders and is able to look at these very mind-warping subjects. I mean, even look at them, number one, and number two, make heads or tails out of it and come up with some real creative thinking. Your Coincidence, Chaos, Archetypes in Our Science Fictional World article just bowled me over. I mean, this is good stuff, and that's why I thought it was real important to introduce you to our very up-to-speed listenership at the Paracast here. And Jeff Davis, one of our posters, is a big fan of yours. He's been following your stuff for years and has mentioned your name to us. And it's really a pleasure to finally get you on the show and talk about some of these mind warping things that aren't as constant as people might think they are.
Well, thank you. That's great.
Let's kind of dive in here. First of all, why don't you give us a little background on your education? What got you started in this particular realm of kind of heady thinking? Give us a little. Who is Eric Wargo? Give us a sense of who you are.
Well, okay, I have a PhD in anthropology, but I did not go into academia. I went into science writing after I finished my dissertation. I just didn't want to do the whole academic thing. I'm not really cut out for spending my whole life, my head buried, in one really narrow little, obscure little topic. I kind of want to explore everything and then move on when I'm done. So science writing sort of gave me, it's turned out to be a really good career for me. And so I worked for a psychology organization for a long time and an archaeology organization for a long time. And then now I'm working for the National Institutes of Health as a science writer. So I'm writing about a lot of neuroscience stuff and all that. So that's my day job. But how did I get into all this paranormal, all the stuff that you guys deal with on the Paracast? I guess I've always been interested in UFOs, ESP, whatnot, but sort of it was always in the back of my mind. And then in 2009, I had a couple of UFO experiences, not very minor. They were just balls of light at a distance, nothing like super, earth shattering, but they sort of got me to actually do my due diligence and do some reading about the subject. And that was the first time I really became aware that, oh my God, there's really smart people actually studying this stuff. This isn't just a kooky fringe arena. I mean, it is partly that, but it's not.
Yeah, Jethro's in the trailer parks.
Yeah, right. No, there were some very smart people writing about this stuff. And at that point, Mac Toney's had a blog that really inspired me. And I thought, hey, I'm going to start talking about this stuff on my blog and sort of reacting to things I was reading. And so I went down the rabbit hole, and it started out, with the UFO stuff. I mean, I read everything I could find, and of course, like a lot of, I'm sure, like you guys, and like I know a lot of your listeners, I really gravitated to the work of Jacques Vallée. I mean, he has been a huge inspiration for me in all kinds of ways, and it's sort of in grappling with the ideas that he puts out there that he kind of forces you to start thinking about these other topics that for me were always a little bit more like, I don't know if I want to, I didn't have trouble, didn't have trouble with the concept of UFOs. I did have trouble with the concept of ESP and various other paranormal phenomena, and I'd never really done much reading about it. But it forced me to get into it, and I have to say that was probably a bigger paradigm shift for me than even thinking about the UFO subject, because I grew up. My parents were both psychologists, scientifically oriented psychologists, and there's no group of people more skeptical about ESP than mainstream scientific psychologists. And so, just the very concept of
both your parents were psychologists.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, how come you sound so normal? Aren't kids psychologists totally screwed up?
It's taken me 48 years to get normal.
Okay.
Well, maybe you're hiding the real truth here, and you're just putting on this calm demeanor, and all the chaos is happening underneath.
Right. Well, there could be that. Well, a lot of meditation has helped me become normal, I have to tell you. Yeah. So it's I think it was originally Jacques Vallée, and of course he kind of, when you read Jacques Vallée, of course, you get introduced to the whole SRI world of remote viewing and that whole thing. And so that's become a real strong interest of mine in the last couple of years, especially. I kind of got sick of writing about UFOs because, I think with everyone, you reach a point where you realize, oh my God, this is just this whole topic is just a quagmire. It's just,
well, that's why we need to bring it to the next level. And that would be fixed, hard data monitoring arrays, triangulated cameras, magnetometers, gravitometers, do it right. Like a scientific organization can do it. And with the technology now being so affordable and the ability over the internet with very short latency times to actually, have detect on motion, record on motion capabilities. This is where I think the real nuts and bolts ufology is going.
Yes, where is nuts and bolts ufology going? We have Eric Wargo. We're tearing apart our concept of reality and trying to figure out how to take things to the next level with Gene and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
Independently leading the way for the nation. Compelling talk for every political persuasion. We are GCN.
Is there a secret UFO agenda? Do strange creatures from the darkest corners of the mind roam the earth? Is there evidence for mind control, time travel, or devious government conspiracies? Find out the inside scoop on the latest conspiracies, paranormal activity, and Freudian phenomena when you subscribe to Tim Beckley's Conspiracy Journal. It's jam-packed with stories, special book and DVD promotions, and the best news, it's absolutely free, sent right to your mailbox. Plus, a bonus free email newsletter sent out every Friday. Simply send an email with your name and address to Mr. UFO at webtv.net. That's Mr. UFO at webtv.net. Find out what they don't want you to know.
If you constantly feel run down and tired, your pH level might be low and your body could be full of toxins. If what you drink is not at a pH level of 8 or higher, you are inviting bacteria and acid to thrive in your body. But there is something you can do. Simply add 10 drops of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops to your water to help your body rid itself of acidic waste, increase oxygen, and raise your pH balance to optimum levels. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops combine a unique formula of the most alkaline minerals in the world, alkalizing the water you drink, ridding your body of acidic waste and toxins, and helping you regain energy and vibrant health. And studies show viruses, bacteria, and toxins cannot survive in an alkaline, high pH environment. Order your bottle of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops at alkavision.com. That's ALKA vision.com. Or call 269-409-1776. 269-409-1776. Alkalize your body. Supercharge your health at alkavision.com today.
As a parent, one of my greatest concerns is for the safety and well-being of my family. But no matter how concerned I am, it doesn't take the place of taking action and preparing for the unknown. I plan by having a GoFood savings account where I allocate a little money each month to have health store quality food delivered to my door at budget store prices. Although GoFoods are storable for 25 years, they are family mealtime favorites even today. My family asking to eat the food that we are storing lets me know that when we only have the food we stored to live on, that we won't have the added stress of eating unfamiliar or undesirable food. Buying GoFoods is investing in the future of my family. Convenient packages allow me to buy according to my budget, and I get free shipping on my monthly orders. To set up your GoFood savings account, call 800-648-9753 or on the web at www.storefoodnow.com. That's 800-648-9753.
By now, you may have heard a bit about Bitcoins, but did you know Bitcoins are now over an $8.5 billion market? And did you know that over 65,000 businesses now accept Bitcoins? Listen, if you're already earning Bitcoins or trying to make money in the Bitcoin market, you've got to know bidbit.co. Why? Because bidbit.co is where you can easily receive Bitcoins by selling and auctioning off your own personal items or promote business products and services for Bitcoins. You heard right. Whether personal or business, you can now buy, sell, and auction your products and services quickly, easily, and securely for Bitcoin at bidbit.co, the first and only marketplace website to offer BidBit Escrow, a proprietary technology which gives buyers and sellers security and peace of mind because all transactions are protected. Start today. It's free to join, free to post, free to auction, and free to bid at bidbit.co. Buy, sell, bid, or auction everything Bitcoin. That's www.bidbit.co, bidbit.co.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
So let me tell you right now, if you're expecting a normal run of ghosts and Bigfoot and UFOs, turn the dial to another station. Do people do that anymore? Turn the dial to another station. I think you just push a button. That's how it goes right now.
You just dated yourself.
Well, listen, I was building tube radios when I was a kid and crystal radios when I was a kid. Yeah. So, yeah, you can date me, but not in reality. Anyway, Eric Wargo is here with Gene and Chris in the Paracast, and Chris was framing a question.
I think nuts and bolts ufology, we need to separate this out into categories. I think someone like a Jacques Vallée, who's proposing a global effort to try to create, the ultimate database. Mm-hmm. I mean, in writing books with Chris Aubeck about sightings that were fairly well documented prior to the 1880s. I think this is all well and good, but if we really want to make progress, we need to come up with some hard data that can withstand the rigors of science and is unequivocal and unassailable. This is where nuts and bolts ufology should be headed, and hopefully with Douglas Trumbull and UFOTOG and my San Luis Valley project and other projects I'm sure that are out there. I think this is where we're going to be taking it forward. But with someone like you, Eric, you kind of looking at chinks in the armor of reality and our the way that we are able to sort of miss out, forest for the trees, certain elements that are mentioned in the books and in the literature, things like synchronicity, for instance, things like precognition, as you mentioned, ESP, remote viewing. These are the types of things that I think are potential windows and doorways that open up a wonderful vista of possibility. And that's kind of where your blog really, I think, is important for people and why I'm highly recommending it. It's going to take me a while to get caught up on some of your writing, but if it's like your last several pieces, boy, I'm going to have some fun with it. Why don't you give us a sense of where your thinking has not only developed with Vallée, but some of the other influences that you've had let's maybe start in the UFO realm, but then branch off. Have you read much of John Keel's work, for instance?
I've read a little bit of it. Yeah, I've read a couple of his books. He's great. He's great. Honestly, I have only, I think, a limited ability to read stories about, a lot of this literature is just endless stories, endless, fascinating encounter stories, whatever. In the end, it's like, okay, I get it. I'm a believer. This is real. I then want to understand. I want to understand what it could be. I really want to get at, what's the reality underlying this. And I don't trust most encounter stories. I mean, I think that, something is happening to or in the mind of the experiencer. It's distorting the reality of what's going on. I'm not at all saying that it's only in their heads, but it's something is affecting their heads.
Yeah,
And
that's constantly what we're dealing with in the abduction phenomenon, we're constantly talking about. Well, where do you come down on that? I mean, what kind of operative mechanism do you think is at play? Is there something truly external that is influencing some sort of inner mental process or emotional process?
Yeah, I'm very reluctant to even talk about the abduction phenomenon because it's something I don't know a lot about. I haven't read a lot of the literature. It's something. It's sort of the little corner of ufology that I kind of set aside because it seems a little embarrassing, a little troublesome. Not sure how to deal with it. And frankly, some of the people, the big names who talked about abduction, I don't buy their methods and their assumptions. And so it just seems problematic to me. And so I don't really, I can't say, that's all to say that I'm not an expert in abduction. And so I don't want to give my opinion of what's going on. I've, on my blog, I have tossed out some ideas, and this is, I'm not the only one to have this idea, but I think, the idea of transcranial magnetic stimulation. This is a method that's now used in hospitals and laboratories to actually create mental effects, which happen to be very often very similar to the kinds of effects you see in abduction cases. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that in the presence of a powerful electromagnetic field, like what are supposed to exist with a lot of UFOs, which disrupt car engines and airplane electronics, it seems very reasonable that they could do the same thing to the human cortex and produce all the kind of classic effects familiar from the abduction literature. Is that the explanation? The explanation, I don't know, but I think that certainly could be part of the story. I also have to say that I don't think that the UFO phenomenon is one thing. I think that there are multiple things going on that may have little to do with each other that have kind of gotten lumped together. So I don't know that there's any one answer to these things.
Okay, so we're lumping together a number of different things, and certainly you appear to have done that when you separate out the abduction scenario from the rest. Mm-hmm. What else have we put together in one bucket that maybe should be in separate buckets?
Well, another bucket that I'm not very happy with is, of course, the Roswell thing. And I know you guys aren't either. I mean, that's just I don't even read the stories anymore about the Roswell slides. And just so
I tell you, man, I break out in hives.
Yeah.
I've been to Roswell, and it's like a virus. It's creeping out over the countryside. The closer you get to Roswell, New Mexico, the more alien images you encounter. And by the time you're 50 miles, 40 miles away, everything is aliens. And when you get into Roswell, even the country and Western clothing stores have alien mannequins. I break out in hives in places I don't know where to put calamine lotion.
I'm going to find really enjoyment in how you react next week, because we're apparently going to have Red Pill Junkie here. Oh. And he's our favorite cutting-edge thinker from Mexico. Uh-huh. And he's going to attend the Roswell Slides event in Mexico City on May 5th.
Oh, Miguel's going to he's going to have so much fun.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fun to see what happens, but oh my God.
Or what doesn't happen.
Or what doesn't happen. Right.
Oh God. Better him than me. Oh.
Yeah. So, I think the whole notion of crashed saucers and all the ideas that spin off from that, like, re-engineering, alien technology, all that stuff. I mean, that I just don't, that is sort of off my radar pretty much completely. I don't, however, completely discount the ETH, the extraterrestrial hypothesis, as long as you revise it, and this I've written about a lot on my blog too, I think that, when you say UFOs, people in their minds, immediately there's this image of a little flying saucer with a little gray man behind the wheel, this very, 1950s image. And unfortunately, the public still thinks that way, and you can't blame them. They haven't been educated that there are more sophisticated ideas out there. But I do think that that there are other models of a kind of modified ETH. And this is something I have written about on my blog a lot. And I think that it is very reasonable, not from UFO. You don't even have to look at the UFO data. You don't even have to look at the UFO phenomenon. Just looking at all the models of interstellar colonization and expansion proposed, in order to sort of investigate the Fermi paradox and all that, or actually the models that the Fermi paradox is based on, which all point to the idea that our galaxy should be completely inhabited, colonized, whatever you want to call it by now, or we're alone. That's somehow the dichotomy that we're presented with. I think these are very unrealistic because they assume that the trajectory of a technological society is going to be expansion, physical expansion into the universe, via colonization or whatever.
We have Eric Wargo with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast. Independently leading the way for the nation. Compelling talk for every political persuasion. We are GCN.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best. Available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS or have years of unfiled returns? Are you being audited or receiving threatening letters? If the answer is yes, you need help. The IRS can seize your property and assets, impose fines and penalties, garnish your wages, and even go after your bank account. Don't take on the IRS by yourself. Don't let the IRS destroy your life. Take action now. Call our team of experts for a free and confidential initial evaluation. We've helped thousands resolve their tax problems. Let us help you. 800-261-7073. 800-261-7073.
If the IRS has garnished your paycheck or seized money from your bank account, you need to get professional tax help now. Fast action is required to put a halt to these aggressive IRS collection tactics. You can count on the knowledgeable team of tax professionals at Wall & Associates. With over 30 years of experience, Wall & Associates has settled the tax problems of thousands of taxpayers for a small fraction of what they owed. For a free face-to-face consultation, call 1-800-425-4610 to put a wall between you.
Attention taxpayers! If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 877-345-7645. That's 877-345-7645.
1-877-345-7645. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately at 1-877-345-7645. That's 1-877-345-7645. 1-877-345-7645.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
Chris is descending into his trickster voice. It's going to come full-blown as we go on. Eric Wargo is our guest. He's a science writer, PhD in anthropology, and he's telling us a lot of things that maybe you didn't want to hear. Okay, so we're looking at the extremes here you were mentioning, Eric, that one, the galaxy is plentiful with life, or we're all alone.
Well, should be.
Should be. Now, or we're all alone, which seems another extreme in the other direction. So where is the Goldilocks point here?
I think what I was starting to say before the break was that the trajectory of a technological civilization is not going to be towards expansion into the universe. It's going to, because alongside spaceflight capability is going to come all the other technological advances that we associate with the singularity. And I'm not a big singularity believer either, but some version of the singularity is going to happen slowly over the next century or so, which is going to involve, one, massive extension of the lifespan and massive advances in computing and robotics. Now, what this is going to mean is that our future in space is actually going to, I think, probably stop with colonization of the solar system. I don't think we're going to physically, in our human bodies, extend beyond the solar system. Hopefully we'll extend off the Earth. I would like to see that, and I think a lot of people assume that that will happen. But by the time, by a couple of centuries from now, we're going to be exploring the universe completely via remote probes, remote drones, self-replicating. And all the models show that if you send out self-replicating drones and they go to all the nearest star systems, and then there they reproduce and go to the nearest star systems, they will expand, exponentially. And you could quickly, in the space of a couple, 100,000 years or whatever, fill the galaxy with self-replicating, autonomous, artificially intelligent science platforms, basically, to conduct surveillance, to conduct science, and to basically, and also just to keep an eye on things for security purposes. I mean, for just your long-term security as a species, you want to know what's going on everywhere. So you're going to put your CCTV cameras basically on every planet, not just the ones that have, intelligent civilizations like us. You're going to put your monitoring on planets that have just algae, because you don't know what's going to happen over the next few million years. So you want to stick around and watch. So I think that it's a very realistic assumption that our planet is being monitored by very advanced technology that would be, we might not even know it was here, and that it could be very ancient, and it could have been here, since before we were even tree shrews. You know,
that's what people say. Oh, you're into UFOs. You believe in aliens, and I say, wait a minute. How do you know we're not the aliens? And whatever people are calling aliens isn't more terrestrial than we are. It's like there's so many knee-jerk assumptions out there that drive me up the wall.
Sure. And part of what I'm proposing is also, the idea of interstellar colonization is kind of implicit in the Fermi paradox, because, Fermi said, where are they? And that implied, well, they should be here. They, the extraterrestrial beings should be here already. They should be here visiting. They should be whatever.
Gathering plant soil samples. And
gathering samples. Right.
I mean, how many reports have you seen where the aliens are walking around outside their craft, looking at plants and looking at things on, in our environment like they've never seen them before?
Right. Right.
It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Right. You could throw something in orbit the size of a beer can.
Right.
That could probably have, even with our technology, have the capability of gathering immense amounts of data without ever having to, to land or, to interact with, picking daisies and looking at rocks like you've never seen one before. It just doesn't make sense, that whole scenario.
Well, I agree with that, but consider this. I think, and as an anthropologist, I'm coming at this a little differently, I think, than most people. I think that if you're actually going to do science on an emerging civilization or on a planet, you don't just observe. I mean, science is experimentation.
Yeah.
And it's experimentation to create reliable findings. You need to do experiments with vast samples. You need to repeat those experiments again and again, and then you need to vary the experiments to test different hypotheses. And I think that when you consider that, and you consider that in order to actually create a realistic, very reliable, powerful ability to predict and control our behavior, should you want to do that ever, you would need to conduct pretty much the same kind of thing that you see on psych labs on campuses all the time, which is recruiting like sort of naive participants, putting them through some bizarre oddball situation and seeing how they react, and doing it again to another group of participants. And then
to create a database. Right.
To create a database. And to do this, and the thing is, if you had just a long-term project of knowing all that is knowable, these machines could be generating these psych experiments endlessly. And it kind of, when you start thinking those terms, it kind of starts to look a lot like the control system that Jacques Vallée proposed. Even though he was he put out that theory kind of to counter the ETH. But I think that there's a version of the ETH, an automated ETH, that's doing science, endless sciance on our species.
It conforms to that.
Right. It conforms very closely.
That's a very interesting kind of backdoor approach, or analytical approach. I absolutely see the, I see the relevance of that particular line of thinking. And it could very well be similar to scientists in the natural world who are going out and tagging bears and tagging animals and monitoring behavior, unbeknownst to the animal. And for the most part, I think some people do kind of equate the abduction phenomenon into that particular possible scenario where you've got your, pretty much your knee-jerk David Jacobs, Bob Hopkins ideas of hybridization, of possibly fortifying the genetics of a dying race. I mean, you hear that one all the time, which sounds great in theory, and it's kind of a cool sci-fi concept, but
sure.
I don't understand how their genetics could possibly have any sort of possibility of utilizing our genetics. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the likelihood is that's kind of a long shot.
0 to 10, yeah.
But getting back to your idea of spreading out technology out into the universe and having self-replicating machines actually doing the heavy lifting out there, as opposed to sending flesh and blood humans out to do this from these vast distances. How would you monitor something like that? Would you program it to be totally autonomous, or would you try to have it be as interactive as possible? Or how do you envision that?
Well, it depends on whether light speed is really how much that continues to be a limitation. And, there's so much argument about whether light speed is an absolute speed limit or not. I think if my assumption, I just go ahead and assume that it is going to continue to be an absolute limitation in the universe. It makes so much sense that it is to me, but that's just me. In that case, then these probes are completely autonomous. They're artificially intelligent, and they collect the data, they analyze the data, they're completely autonomous, and they, periodically send their reports back to the home world, or whatever. Maybe they interact with each other as a vast galaxy-wide neural net. I don't know, but they're autonomous.
Well, how about quantum entanglement? Do you think that there's the possibility of creating some sort of instantaneous sort of quantum spooky action at a distance? I think Einstein referred to it, where light particles, for instance, respond immediately, instantaneously, much faster than the speed of light. Do you think we could possibly utilize some sort of quantum entangled communication device or something?
I'm not a quantum physicist. I mean, I love those ideas, and yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, and if that's the case, then that makes it even more interesting the way a civilization might interact with the universe via its technology. Its technology would become essentially extensions of itself. It would be like, I really picture, us with our little iPhone-controlled drones, hovering over, animals in the neighbor's backyard and
delivering Amazon products.
Delivering Amazon products. Well,
but it's going to change now because they'll be using an Apple Watch instead to make those deliveries. Hey, folks, go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com to check out After the Paracast, plus.theparacast.com. As you see, we're not doing the conventional this week on the show. That's the credit to Eric Wargo. More to come with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Great minds think alike. The network for the independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network. GCN.
Hi, this is Larry Smith. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. Like when the jeweler ruined my ring and wouldn't do anything about it. But when my Legal Shield attorney called him and told him what my rights were, I received a check for over $2,100. Worry less and live more with lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com, or call 855-340-SAVE. Again, 855-340-7283.
Results will vary from case to case.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
The Genesis Communications Network is one of America's premier broadcasters of captivating talk radio. We thank you for listening. Now, just imagine, there are thousands of people who are just as passionate about radio as you are. But what you may not realize is how easy and affordable it is to advertise with us. Radio commercials for your business could be heard on hundreds of radio stations across the U.S. every day. We can help you by creating an effective radio advertising campaign for your company. From script writing to producing your commercial, just like the one you're listening to right now. No other network provides the level of customer service we do. When it comes to radio advertising, we are your one-stop shop. And no matter how big or small your business is, we can help. Email us at advertise@gcnlive.com, and an experienced advertising executive will help you take the first step towards driving more customers to your business or website. Advertise@gcnlive.com. Easy, affordable, effective.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Eric Wargo is talking about many things that may be don't necessarily come to the fore here. So it would be easier than you're suggesting, Eric, to use machines for space exploration, which I guess we're kind of doing more of. Anyway, we haven't sent people to Mars, but we've sent the probes out there. So you're thinking an advanced race wouldn't want to get involved in the large resource waste of sending intelligent beings when they can just send computers?
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as they don't look like Arnold in the Terminator, I'd be okay with that.
Right.
He'll be back.
Right. Yeah, I do absolutely think that. And another reason I think that is it's not just resources, not just waste, it's not just the ability to do it. When you automate science, and when you imagine the degree of data gathering capacity, imagine our existing robots, our existing Curiosity rover, and then imagine his descendants, in 200 years, how cool they're going to be and what they're going to be able to achieve, let alone 1,000 years in the future. Yeah. They'll be able to do everything, and it'll be fantastic. But there's another argument for this, and that is, I think that with longevity, remember another part of this sort of leap that we're talking about has to do with human health and human longevity. However it happens, whether it's with uploading our consciousness to computers, which I don't buy, but certainly our bodies are going to be machine augmented. Various advances in health, nanotechnology, all the advanced research being done now. This is going to greatly extend our lives. And although I don't agree with Kurzweil's singularity idea completely, I do think he's right about a few things, which is that at a certain point, you sort of live long enough to bootstrap yourself to the next level of advancement. And where we are probably on the threshold of basically becoming immortal, an immortal species. Now, I think that... Well,
I'm sure glad it's going to be coming after the lifespan of certain politicians that do not deserve to have extended lifespans.
Right. But I think...
I could name names, too.
Well, I could name a lot, too. I live in Washington, remember?
Yeah, exactly.
I think the longer the lifespan, the more precious life becomes, not less. Think about it. Our ancestors, they did not live long lives. I mean, life was nasty, brutish, and short. They risked their lives on the perilous sea journeys and all the adventures and misadventures of our historical past. But as life gets longer, your life becomes much more precious to you. You don't want to risk it on some perilous journey across space. You don't want to risk your precious long life on some, perilous journey across space to some, miserable little colony on Mars. And also when lives get longer, the family goes away, really. I mean, longer lived people have fewer children. At least I think that's the sort of the tendency. And I think, when we become immortal, whatever that means, whether means really long life or literally immortal, I don't know. But a few centuries down the road, we're not going to be having many children. There's not going to be this need to spread out into the universe for. Well,
this is all. I mean, in theory, this all sounds great. But one thing that comes up is number one, this is going to obviously be an expensive proposition. So only people that are well healed. That have the money to engage in life extension, they're going to be a separate class of individual, I think, because I don't think this is going to be available for everybody. And if it is, it's going to create more problems with population issues on the planet. The more well-heeled you are as a person, let's say you're a woman living on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, you have a child. If you compare that to a child born in Bangladesh, it's about 1,000 times the impact on the planet's resources, on the environment, just simply because of the upscale lifestyle. It makes more demands upon our resources, and so I think with less children at the top and less of a population at the top, that's actually going to be a good thing for the planet because you're going to be utilizing less and less resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what you just mentioned is I think it's a hugely important issue. The sort of social what's the word? The disparities, the social disparities that are completely, they're sort of swept under the rug by all the singularity people and all that. I mean, how are you going to equitably distribute things like immortality? And you're not.
No way.
But even if you have a vast underclass of people who are living life basically the way we're living now, and having families and stuff like that, you're not going to be, putting the money into schlepping them off the planet, moving them to some, colony. I mean, that the expenditure in fuel and all that to move a human body into space is just extraordinary. So I don't, that wealth problem is going to keep them on the earth one way or another. And yeah, if they're very rich, and unfortunately, I kind of agree with you. I'm worried that it's the very rich who are really going to reap the benefits coming in the next few centuries. And they may move somewhere else or whatever. But again, it just goes back to the basic assumption I'm making, which is that we're not going to be colonizing the universe. We're not going to be spreading out.
Well, the Elysium, that movie that was out last year with Matt Damon and Jodie Foster, I thought, even though it was a little bit far-fetched, I thought the whole idea, the concept of the movie of the separation of classes really had some relevance in terms of looking forward. There seems to be trends going on now, at least in the Western world, where you do have that eggshell 1% class that is going to be, obviously the first ones to utilize any sort of exalted life extension technology, let's say. I mean, look at Dick Cheney. I mean, the guy, for someone that never had a heart, to finally get one in his 70s, and now he's going to be around even that much longer. I mean, that's frightening to me.
Yeah.
Well, this gets to a whole thing here, that future humans will be immortal machines. Is that where it's taking us?
I think future humans are going to be immortal cyborgs. I mean, I think you're not going to get rid of the organic. There's got to be something organic to it. I really think that, and even a lot of people in AI now think that, the future of computing is biological.
Right. So you're talking about like from Star Trek, like the Borg, something that's happening.
Something more glamorous than that. I don't think it's going to be, they're pretty ugly, miserable beings. I think it's, I don't know. I think that I'm not sure what the technology is going to look like. I mean, it could be very nanotech type stuff.
So what little nanotech, like doctors running around repairing organs and
making us, eternally graceful and beautiful and immune to all diseases and whatnot. My vision of the future, honestly, is the elven races in Tolkien's books. I think that's
right.
I think we should be reading Tolkien as science fiction, not as fantasy, because I think that's the most realistic, honestly, model for a far future civilization. Is beings, living long lives in, very protected, comfortable enclaves, and sort of letting all the mortal, dispendable mortal races sort of do all the dirty work of
the heavy lifting,
going on adventures and fighting and whatnot. In our case, it may be just our machines doing that, but I don't.
If they look like Evangeline Lilly or Liv Tyler, boys, I'm there.
I'll have no complaints.
I'm there, baby.
Really.
Well, okay, but let's look at this in more detail here. So we are cyborgs, or at least the privileged few are cyborgs. And there would be no desire of these cyborgs to say, I'd love to go to another star system. Let's see if we can invent warp drive. A lot of questions to come with our guest this week, Eric Wargo, and we'll get more deep and dirty into realities. And we haven't scratched the surface with Gene and with Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
Hi, John Hubner from Midas Resources. Are you tired of watching your hard-earned assets dwindle away? As government spending is out of hand and the Federal Reserve is creating in excess of $20 billion a week, are you tired of stockbrokers gambling away your hard-earned money? Is this market a setup for a crash greater than 1987? Too many of today's policies resemble those that led to the collapse of 1929. This is John Hubner, and that was me in 2007. And we all know what happened when the subprime credit bubble burst. By March 2009, the dollar lost 50% of its value. The entire U.S. banking system was on the verge of collapsing. Like all financial problems of the past, is history about to repeat itself? Call me, John Hubner, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 129, before it's too late to protect yourself. Will the oncoming catastrophe take all private IRAs, 401ks with it? There is a way to protect your hard-earned assets. Call me, John Hubner, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 129.
Heart and Body Extract continues to receive positive testimonials from people who have experienced amazing results, like Reed.
I just wanted to send you a quick but a very big thank you for Heart and Body Extract. I've been on the formula for nearly a month now, and the improvement in the circulation of my legs has been simply amazing.
Reed was facing a tough choice.
I was facing surgery due to the severity of the 100% blocked arteries in both my legs. And my decision, waiting for surgery, to say no and try Heart and Body Extract instead, has been thankfully the right decision.
And the result?
I can now walk up steps without noticeable pain.
Order Heart and Body Extract at 866-295-5305, 866-295-5305, or hbextract.com. Heart and Body Extract for a long and healthy life.
Did you know that drinking pure, high-alkaline water is one of the most important factors in maintaining high energy and vibrant health? Most experts agree that the water you drink should be at a pH level of 8 or higher. AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops, available only at alkavision.com, combine a unique formula of only the most alkaline minerals. AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops alkalize your water, ridding the body of harmful toxins, and helps you regain health and energy. Alkalizing your water by simply adding 10 drops of AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops helps the body rid itself of acidic waste, increases oxygen content, and raises the pH of your body to healthy levels. And bacteria and viruses cannot survive in an alkaline high pH environment. Order your bottle of AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops for only $29.95 at alkavision.com. That's ALKAvision.com. Or call 269-409-1776. 269-409-1776. Alkalize your body. Supercharge your health at alkavision.com today.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Okay, so we are cyborgs, okay? Living tissue with enhancements to keep us alive forever. So Eric Wargo, why wouldn't they want to travel to the stars?
Because it'd be boring. I mean,
it's easy for you to say.
I mean, he's sitting in the same freaking little ship or big ship or whatever. And I mean, just look at, poor Dave Bowman in 2001. Or what was that? What was that great movie with Bruce Dern? He's the gardener.
Silent Running. I love
Silent Running.
Yeah.
I mean, I would get sick of watching the same movies, playing the same people in chess, reading the same books. It would just, I would go nuts.
You don't believe, therefore, in a city in space. But then, what if we find a way to perfect a warp drive so we can get to another star system in a few days rather than 25 years or something? Wouldn't it still make sense?
Yeah, that would be different, of course. But again, we're talking about, what did Michio Kaku say? I think a class 3 civilization that would be able to harness the energy of complete stars in order to fold space and come up with the immense amounts of energy it would take to fold space, to create that kind of jump off point. I mean, the technological hurdles and the development curve on that is really immense. Obviously, we've come a long way just in the last 60 years, but now you're dealing with tremendous amounts of expenditures to do this, and we're having a hard enough time just paying Social Security. I mean, trying to keep people healthy and keep just basic human services going here on this planet. The amount of money it would take to, we'd have to totally revamp valuation, how work is valued, how things are funded. I think we're headed towards some real changes, I think, in mindset and in worth. I mean, we're still dealing with primitive, thousands and thousands year old outmoded ideas of worth and wealth and what those things constitute. We've got to have a complete sea change when it comes to thinking about these things. What do you think, Eric? I mean, don't you think that much of our culture is religions, organized religions, ideas of money and these things? You do feel that they're a little bit outmoded and we need to maybe kind of redefine all these things in a different way? Or
Well, obviously, I think everything needs to be redefined. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think what I'm presuming, my model is a post-scarcity society. I'm assuming that all the advancements I'm talking about, and I'm not sure the time frame. I'm saying, well, it could happen next century or 2 centuries, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Some window of time in the next millennium. We're going to be at a point, hopefully, where there's a kind of post-scarcity situation, and that's gonna redefine all these things that you're talking about. But among these developments, and Gene, you were asking about, well, why wouldn't we want to go out into space? Well, another reason besides the boredom prospect, even if we develop a warp drive, we're not going to be going places. I mean, we are inhabiting the world virtually, and that's going to just be increasingly true. And these drones I'm talking about, they're going to be literally our eyes and ears and our hands and feet. We're going to be, interacting with the world remotely. Now, we're talking about the distributed self. Some philosophers who like to talk about technology, talk about the distributed self, or, we're going to become these kind of distributed creatures. The notion of what our body does, it doesn't really matter. I don't need to go to Mars. If I can go to Mars completely through my neural implants and inhabit an artificial form on Mars and walk around on Mars and do all the things I would want to do on Mars, and
kind of like Total Recall.
Right. Yeah. Or an avatar or whatever you want to call it.
Now, I remember a science fiction novel I read once, which certainly illustrated this concept, and I can't remember the author, where when someone travels through space, they download their consciousness to this machine that takes the trip, but they, of course, experience the entire trip.
Yeah, I think I think I know the novel you're talking about. I'm trying to think of the title, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, right, sure. I'm just looking at my bookcase right now because I know I've.
Okay, but the point being here is, even then, if what goes to another planet is our avatar, we're using virtual reality. We still experience it as a reality, but at the other end, does that mean that the so-called UFO naughts that we see, when we see them, are they real creatures being cyborgs or avatars or what? What are they?
I can't answer that. I mean, they could be holograms. They could be artificial avatars that were 3D printed and, either autonomous artificially intelligent or being puppeteered by some distant intelligence. Who knows? I mean, this all, there you start getting into, there's no way to say, because we don't, again, it depends partly on whether the speed of light is going to be a fixed speed limit or not, because if it is, then they've got to be remote, artificially intelligent.
Or it all could be computer simulation. It could be some 14-year-old, character generation. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about this when we had this message in our forum suggesting that when we see things making incredible maneuvers in our skies, UFOs, they are really cursors from somebody's personal computer dancing around.
I love that idea. I mean, I love Mac Toney's years ago, wrote that they were laser pointers. And it's like, God, that's just a brilliant, I think, analogy. It's projected from somewhere.
Well, getting into the whole idea of, the holographic universe. One of my favorite books of all time in the science realm is Michael Talbot's The Holographic Universe. Just highly recommend that book. I mean, I think as we progress in our understanding of reality and, in my limited sort of scientific sort of brain, my primitive brain here, it's just even the little bit that I know is very exciting when you start talking about implicate order and the possibility that within each component of the whole, there is that image of the whole, like breaking a hologram and having the entire image in the pieces. Degraded, images, not quite the resolution of the entire image, but still it's contained in there. And that whole idea has always fascinated me. Where do you come down on this whole idea that we're living in some sort of holographic projection possibly, or some sort of, I don't know, there's some sort of implicate order that's inherent in the entire shooting match here. Have you done much work in that realm in terms of your thinking?
I've thought about it like we all have, and these ideas sound great. And I don't, sure. Yeah. Why not? I don't know how to evaluate them. I mean, I don't have a background in physics. I mean, I love the ideas. I love these ideas as thought experiments and whatnot, but I have not seen evidence that anyone really has figured out the basic structure of reality. And it seems like
it would be nice to figure out what consciousness is first.
Right. Well, right. Of course. This is a whole other topic, just figuring out what we mean by consciousness.
Well, we have to stay conscious for a few more moments. With Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Independently leading the way for the nation. Compelling talk for every political persuasion. We are GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100 200-foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Call 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
We all know that Berkey Water Purification Systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey Water Filtration Systems. The Berkey Light Systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light System today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at goberkey.com. That's goberkey.com today.
Positive results from satisfied customers of Heart and Body Extract continue to pour into our website, hbextract.com.
This is Al from New Jersey. One day I saw your ad for Heart and Body Extract, and it mentioned that it would help me with angina, so I decided to order. I figure I had nothing to lose.
Heart and Body Extract supplies your body with everything it needs to balance itself and maintain optimal heart and circulatory health with no negative side effects.
I took the formula 3 times a day as directed, and I kid you not, within 4 days, my angina pain was completely gone.
Order HB Extract by calling 866-295-5305 or online at hbextract.com. That's 866-295-5305 or hbextract.com.
I could not believe it actually stopped the pain. Heart and Body Extract actually works. This is just an amazing product. Even the numbness in my hands is completely gone.
Heart and Body Extract for a long and healthy life.
Hello, this is John Burroughs, one of the witnesses to the Rendlesham UFO incident. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Oh, consciousness. What a concept. We could even talk about that. We have Eric Wargo taking us on a trip where no one has gone before. Well, maybe some people, we don't know. But, you know, we get into so many different aspects of what we interpret as reality. So now we're speculating on physical phenomena, that if UFOs are not creatures, they're cyborgs, they're holograms, avatars, whatever. But what about our entire concept of reality? And that is something which I just said crazily the other day, that as we learn new things about our universe, the reality comports itself to fit into that image.
Mm-hmm. That is a fascinating idea. And I read something, this was a few months ago, and I kind of wrote about it on my blog too. And it was sort of a new interpretation of quantum physics, which, of course, there's the idea that, we affect what we observe, and thus the observer has an impact on the observed phenomenon. Well, it was saying that, by extension, we are responsible for creating the universe. It's our observation that has sort of expanded the universe and given rise to the detail of things, essentially. And I think that's a fascinating idea. What do you do with it? I don't know. How does this explain, these phenomena that we're interested in and we're talking about today? I don't know. But yeah, it's a great idea. It's a fascinating idea. I think there's got to be something to it, whether there's something to it on more than just the subatomic level, or we're actually affecting our material macro scale reality as we, sit in our rooms and observe. I don't know. It certainly goes to questions of ESP and psychokinesis and whatnot. I mean, there's a lot of laboratory evidence that we can affect our reality by thinking about it in certain ways. So, yeah, I mean, this may be a mechanism. Maybe this may be how that works.
That gets into the subject of this wonderful blog posting that you have called Coincidence, Chaos, and Archetypes in Our science fictional world. This is a good point to really start discussing some of these concepts. For instance, I think I pointed out in my email to you that Dean Radin, for instance, who is, I think, a real unsung hero in parapsychology,
I do too.
has demonstrated some amazing things that the mainstream scientific community still is unwilling and has blinders on, is unwilling to admit that there are certain absolutely mind-blowing things about human reality that just don't conform to your basic conventional conservative scientific view. For instance, his whole idea of the body actually, and this has been proven in the lab, the body responds to events before they actually happen. And this is a mind-blowing, if you really think about the implications of that, it really kind of throws your whole idea of causality and the whole idea of linear time almost goes out the window, because how can the human body react to something that in linear time has yet to have occurred? And the implications of that are quite profound. And you point out in your wonderful article here several really interesting ideas that really call into question some of the real cornerstones of thinking about how our reality is set up. And I love the part, Jung and Plato must die, that Psi may live.
Well, they already did, so there you go.
Well, Jung and Plato as concepts, as cornerstones of our thinking. Why don't you go through and give the folks that haven't had a chance to read your blog post, give us a thumbnail sketch of some of your ideas here about synchronicity and other things, and catch some of our listeners up to speed here.
Okay, I'll try. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the findings of Dean Radin and a few other people, but I think he's kind of the main guy who's done this amazing research showing that future events can cause physiological reactions in the past. Okay, that alone is mind-blowing. Beyond that, there's so much, since the first days of psychical research, there's been a lot of stuff on different forms of precognition, knowing the future, precognitive dreaming. This is a big thing for me. I'm really into precognitive dreams. And honestly, of all the different fields of psi research, this is the most compelling to me, even though it seems like the most impossible. And I think that a lot of people argue that even things like clairvoyance or remote viewing and whatnot, that these are actually manifestations of precognition, that you're not like seeing an event at a distance. You're somehow picking up on your own learning of that event in the future, in a sort of a scene of confirmation or feedback. Feedback is incredibly important for remote viewing.
Let's kind of clarify this so it doesn't get confusing.
Yeah.
So you see something that happens a year from now, but because of the way time works, you've already experienced that. You already know about it. It's just tapping into that information?
No, well, what I'm talking about right now is the idea of seeing an event at a distance, not in the future necessarily. I'm saying that maybe what's happening in remote viewing, for instance, is instead of you're looking into across space, you're not looking across space and seeing something happening across the planet. Instead, you are actually seeing your own future moment of seeing a confirmation of what you were trying to look at.
So maybe you see it on TV 10 years from now,
yes,
or in your online publication. I don't know if there'll be newspapers then. But you read about it. You read about an event, and then 10 years back, you tap into that memory.
Yes, exactly.
Ooh.
And this is honestly, I am incredibly convinced of this, not only from all the literature I've read on it, but in my own life, I've always been really interested in my own dreams, and I've just always been very interested in the psychology of dreaming. And so I record my dreams. And when I read finally, I've always interpreted dreaming as the encoding of past memories. Psychologists tend to assume that the dreaming is somehow connected to memory. I think that it's the actual transforming of your recent memories into long-term memory by a process of sort of taking and symbolizing recent events and linking them to past to your long-term memories, so you can create associations in your brain. So I've never looked at my dreams in terms of what was happening in the next few days as opposed to in the previous few days. But when I started doing this, I was frankly stunned, and I continue to be stunned. And I really highly recommend anyone who is at all interested in this subject to get a hold of a great book that was written in 1927. It's called An Experiment with Time by a guy named J.W. Dunn. And this is a sort of a classic text in psi research, but he wasn't a scientist. I forget what he was, but anyway, he just started noticing that if he actually paid attention to his dreams and to events that happened subsequently, you can detect a certain amount of precognitive material that's pretty unmistakable. And he is absolutely right. And if you actually, and he wasn't even coming at it from like a psychoanalytic point of view, or a Freudian point of view. So he wasn't even looking at the symbolism of his dreams. But when you actually pay attention to the symbolic distortions in your dreams and the way dreams sort of take something that happened to you and turn it into this bizarre scenario, even more precognitive material emerges. And sometimes it's frankly stunning. Now, that said, it's also completely useless, I find. I mean, it's nothing, you don't realize that it was precognitive until after the event happens. It's not anything like you have this weird dream, and it's like, okay, that was just bizarre. I have no idea what it refers to. And then something happens that day that is like, oh my God. I mean, that's what that dream was about.
Let's dream about this, folks, and then we'll get back to more of this discussion with Gene and Chris and Eric Wargo. You're in the Paracast.
Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Talk to a sales rep at iWeb.com. Use the promo code TechNightOwl for a special discount.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations who've been waiting for the right time to build. General Steel has made it impossible to wait any longer with rock-bottom prices that could save you thousands. That's right, General Steel, America's leader in pre-engineered structures, is offering buildings at prices you will never see again. Don't miss these prices. A 50 by 100 for $35,000. You heard right. That's 5,000 square feet for $35,000. Manufacturers, if you need a larger building, try a 100 by 100 commercial building for $129,000. You can't afford to rent with these prices. Imagine a 70 by 100-foot church building for under $69,000. With the economy improving and interest rates still at historic lows, you can't afford to wait. So call 866-91-STEEL. Lock in your price now. Call 866-91-STEEL. That's 866-917-8335.
Hi, my name is DeRay, suffering from migraines, having Botox injections in my head and neck to alleviate pain, costing $1,500 out of my pocket. I discovered Dr. Ortman and Gentle Touch chiropractic adjustment called Nuka. I'm migraine-free since my first adjustment. Thanks for giving me my life back, Dr. Ortman. I wish they prescribed you instead of Botox.
Thanks, DeRay. Putting the bones back in place is only half of the solution. We design a nutritional supplement program the body can handle, actually absorb, providing nutrients, targeting the problem area. Between Nuka and nutrition, we will have you on the road to a faster and more permanent recovery. Look us up on the web at drortman.com or call 952-303-9124. Let us help you feel better faster. Wellspring Spinal Care at 952-303-9124. Again, that's 952-303-9124. Or on the web at drortman.com.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gray Alien Report, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Eric Wargo, cutting-edge thinker, anthropologist, with us. And we're exploring precognition. So we remember or tap into something that's going to happen, I guess, to us or we'll be aware of in the future. But we can't refine that. We have no control over that, do we?
Well, some people probably do. I mean, I think that it probably depends on your innate psi abilities. Maybe it's something that can be trained. I mean, this is a debate. Certainly some people seem to be able to make psi and precognition work for them. But, I don't think that's going to happen in my life. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not, I don't have amazing psi abilities. In fact, a lot of my own sort of personal discovery of how this works came out of my attempts at remote viewing. And I think when you get into this stuff, you inevitably buy the books by Jill McMonagle and stuff on how to do it, and you sort of try your hand at remote viewing. And, in my case, I have my wife print out pictures from the internet when she's at work and put them in envelopes. And then I try to see what's in the envelopes. And when I started doing this, what I started doing was having her do this and try to remote view what was in the envelopes before I went to bed at night, but then not look at what was in the envelope until the next morning to see if I maybe dreamed about it. Well, my attempts to actually remote view what's in the envelope consciously, I mean, I meditate, I go into this, try to go into a trance and do everything I'm supposed to do. Is like, no. I mean, my impressions are so wildly different from what's in the envelope that I'm completely hopeless when it comes to remote viewing. But my dreams pick up on these things. And it's kind of stunning when you start.
That's a cool approach. I've never heard of somebody doing that. I like that. It has kind of a ring to it.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. And like I said, if you're at all interested in this stuff, this book, Experiment with Time, is really, it was an eye-opener, especially for me, since I'd always been interested in dreams, but I'd never bothered to actually look at my recorded dreams in the subsequent day or two. Go back, at the end of the day, read the description you wrote down of your dream, and then think about what happened during that day.
So rather than reflecting the past of what you've experienced, some dreams represent the future.
Yes.
But we're saying here basically that what we regard as time is something that is only artificially perceived as linear?
Who knows? Yes. I mean, time is not what we think it is, but But what is
there's a cultural bias there too, as
Yeah.
well. I mean, if you look at the Pueblo Indian tradition, for instance, the Hopi, there is no past and future. Everything is in an eternal now, and so there is a certain cultural almost mindset in terms of how we define our terms and how that definition is reflected in our reality view.
Yeah, that could be really important. All your cultural beliefs about time and the way language works in relation to time. I mean, time. Some people argue that time is purely a function of language. That is an argument that is made, but that still raises the question of what's the reality there? You know, why do time seems to affect physical systems? You know, even when we're not observing it. So what's going on? You know, what is the nature of this thing? I don't know. I mean, there are two ways I think about it, and I think in my, you know, I've been exploring this in these articles over the past couple of months and trying to get my handle on it. And I guess I've come up with sort of two metaphors for thinking of it. One is the sort of non-locality model, that we're really living in an eternal now, and thus we theoretically have access to all information from where we're sitting right here, right now. And time doesn't matter, space doesn't matter, whatever. The other model that I've found compelling, and I admit that it may just be a metaphor, but it's a metaphor that I kind of take to, is this notion that maybe what we're picking up on is strong emotions, and that somehow strong emotions have a kind of timeless, non-local quality that is able particularly to work as a carrier signal almost for future information. This is an old idea in psychical research. It goes back to Frederick Myers in the 19th century, was that trauma is the carrier of psychic phenomena, where you talk about telepathy, talking about apparitions of loved ones who've died on a battlefield or whatever, or precognitive phenomena. This is an idea that goes through a lot of psychic research, that trauma or strong emotions.
Well, in haunting sites too.
Haunting, sure. And poltergeist phenomena, these are basically strong emotions that are being externalized. That's a sort of a common theme. And so I am sort of, part of me thinks that we are really tapping into future strong reactions to events. So it's not like we're just seeing anything that happens in the future. I'm not just seeing, you know, what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow. That doesn't matter, and that's not going to resonate backwards in time. It's not going to send out ripples in time. But events that have a strong emotional component to them, especially if there's sort of a strong conflicting emotional component, where there's something kind of exciting and at the same time kind of painful or scary or traumatizing. These things seem to be what people pick up on. And they're definitely what I'm picking up on in my precognitive sort of dreams that have some sort of precognitive content. That's what I'm picking up on. It's what I'm picking up on in synchronicities. And what I think is happening with most synchronicities is that future strong emotion is resonating with an event in the present. And this is creating these, what I call in this article, sort of sort of feedback loops, because we react to something we don't realize it's from the future. We think we're reacting to something in the present, and it sort of guides us and directs us, and then it directs us towards the event that we were actually responding to. And so that event actually has an amplified impact on us, more of an impact than it would have otherwise. And thus that amplified impact, thus affects us more in that past moment when we were first picking up on it. You see, so it's like a circular feedback loop type thing. And literally like, you know, pushing a speaker too close to a microphone and it immediately starts to squeal. That I'm thinking the psi signal squeals sometimes.
That's a good analogy, actually.
And that's what a synchronicity is.
Yeah.
And that the symbolic dimension of it, you know, for Jung is he's very unclear about what he really means. If you read that book, it's just like, what the hell. I mean, it's very hard to understand where he's going, and I don't think he's really very clear. But he's sort of trying to fit it into his model, his sort of pet theory of archetypes of the collective unconscious, and almost kind of makes it as if these archetypes are orchestrating these uncanny coincidences, as if symbols somehow by themselves have a power to stage manage our lives. And I think that you don't need to assume. I think that if you just take this one sort of well-established finding in parapsychology, which is that somehow information does travel backwards in time and affect us, that's all you need, because by this logic that I'm proposing, I think that even people who accept that information can travel backwards in time, even parapsychologists, even people like Dean Radin, they can be, on the one hand, they can be on board with this idea basically, but they tend not to then think about the implications of that. And I think science fiction is what tells us what the implications of that are. I mean, there are countless time travel stories in science fiction that tell us about all the things that can happen when something travels backward in time. And there's all the different ways that contradictions can be created, the grandfather paradox. But there's also possibilities where things can be sort of doubled and repeated and amplified. I'm saying that there's really kind of two basic paths for this information that travels backwards in time. I'd say the bulk of it gets negated and gets lost because, I think the universe is open-ended. Like I said at the beginning of our interview, I don't think it's etched in stone. And I think our freely willed actions negate most of that information we're receiving from the future, because we've taken a different course of action. We've done something that's rendered that information null. We wouldn't even know it was information. It just becomes noise. But I think occasionally it's going to take the opposite path, and it's going to lead to a coincidence. And
I'll tell you what, let's do our break here. We're going to continue to talk about a reality that sounds to me like clay that can be molded if you know what you're doing.
Or world thing too.
Yeah, let's get into that in our next segment with Eric Wargo and Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
A little right, a little left, but always independent-minded. The Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Attention, do you owe money to the IRS or have years of unfiled returns? Are you being audited or receiving threatening letters? If the answer is yes, you need help. The IRS can seize your property and assets, impose fines and penalties, garnish your wages, and even go after your bank account. Don't take on the IRS by yourself. Don't let the IRS destroy your life. Take action now. Call our team of experts for a free and confidential initial evaluation. We've helped thousands resolve their tax problems. Let us help you. 800-261-7073. 800-261-7073.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
We live in a complicated society. Stressful issues are always popping up. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone? Have you ever been overcharged for a repair? Have you ever signed a contract or a document? Worried about identity theft? How many times have you been in those unique situations where you just wanted to call an attorney to find out if you're right or wrong, or what your legal rights are? But every time you think about calling an attorney, what do you think about first? That's right. Who do you call, and how much will it cost? Our friends at Legal Shield have found a solution. With a nationwide network of 6,900 attorneys who average over 19 years of experience, Legal Shield's law firms take over 40,000 calls per week helping their members. For less than $20 per month, you can have access to Legal Shield on everything from the trivial to the traumatic. Let Legal Shield stand up for your rights at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com. Or call 855-340-SAVE, 855-340-7283.
Results will vary from case to case.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, Here's Gene Steinberg.
Eric Wargo is joining us on the Paracast. Let me say, first of all, that we have another radio show we want you to listen to called After the Paracast. It's 20, 30 minutes of color commentary, continuations of these episodes, and a lot more. To find out how to get on the list to download After the Paracast, you have to join our subscription service to get a copy. Plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. You also get the ad-free version of this show and more to come. And if you subscribe for 1 year or 5 years, you get a free copy of Stalking the Tricksters from Chris O'Brien. Very apt in light of our discussion. Plus.theparacast.com. Eric Wargo is with us, and we're trying to figure out what's happening here. Now, if time is really an illusion, everything is happening in the now, and we just had to perceive it. Maybe we perceive it artificially. What about the concept of aging? We get older gradually. You know, I look at the mirror today, and that guy, he's an old guy.
You desperately want that not to be true, don't you? So do I. Yeah, I think when you hit about 40, you start worrying about that. Well, like this is an example of all the physical processes I mentioned, which, yes, they have a direction. And if time is an illusion, why do these physical processes occur in one direction? And there's where I'm stumped.
Second law of thermodynamics, my friend.
Exactly. Right. Second law of thermodynamics. Okay. Yeah. What do you do with that? I don't.
Yeah. Entropy. The smell of things falling apart.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to your idea of this idea of only certain future events stick in the present because of free will and choice, and some of them are rendered moot. The many worlds theory suggests that every action that we take spins off a separate reality, and there could be quadrillions of permutations of other selves actually acting out scenarios that spin off scenarios that spin off scenarios that spin off scenarios. And, when you get into that whole very sci-fi sounding realm, there is some science to back this up. Particle physics has suggested that we may actually be dealing with multiple realities that are spinning off constantly. Let's say that there's a possibility of that being real. Possibly what we're seeing in the future events that stick in the present is where many of these realities converge, possibly where important convergence points maybe create enough of a presence in the space-time continuum, if you will, to then kick back and impact us in the present.
Mm-hmm. The way I've always sort of interpreted the many worlds interpretation is that to me, I have sort of a mental model of like almost a vine of grapes, and that each action spins off a new universe, but that those universes are separate from each other. They're like, it's like almost, I don't know, that they don't interact. I think that is a way, at least for physicists, to sort of grapple with these issues and not have to worry about the kinds of problems that we're trying to address right here, the paranormal and stuff. Right. To me, it's kind of like a prophylactic model of multiple universes where each action spins off, a bubble universe, but it doesn't, we can't then go back and interact with the other universe. Uh-huh. I'm suggesting that that's not a good way to think about it, that we should think about the future and the past and time as this kind of constantly shifting mush of different sort of overlapping possibilities. And that maybe what we're perceiving as the march of history and time is kind of the statistically most likely, path or something, and that our cortex is somehow forcing us to pick one reality over all the multiple possibilities, and thus we only see that one reality. I don't know, something like that. But I guess what I'm suggesting is that these different possibilities coexisting. And I guess that's maybe kind of what you were getting at there at the end of what you said, that it's like these multiple universes are overlapping and coexisting somehow. I mean, I guess I always sort of go back to the way that Frank Herbert used to sort of describe it in his Dune books.
Right.
Where the future is this kind of shifting kind of landscape. It's like a landscape, but it can shift, and like there's a different possible futures, and our actions sort of can intervene in those futures. This is, again, goes back to why I don't like to think of the universe as this big glass football, that's already etched in stone, and that we're sort of just, sort of scrubbing through it, almost like on a video editing timeline, where we're just sort of seeing this one objective march of history. I think that I think reality is very multiple and overlapping.
Yeah, it's infinitely more complex than that.
Right. So I think you're right. I think I would be fine with this multiple worlds interpretation as long as these multiple worlds are interacting with each other, and they're not just bubbled off.
That's what I was suggesting. And the points of interaction could be those points that then kick back to the present because they have enough. I see what
you're saying. Okay, so it's like they interact at certain like key points.
Right.
Okay.
And trauma would be a good example of an interacting point that would have a lot of inertia behind it, if you will.
That's an interesting idea.
But getting into this whole idea now of Jung, I want to mention this before we get too far down the road here, and the whole idea of archetypes and the collective unconscious. Where do you come down in the collective unconscious? I've always felt that there was some sort of something resonated about that with me always. But what you're kind of suggesting is almost is really downplaying that potential aspect of human existence, that we may be more autonomous and more separate than that, based on the kind of model that you're suggesting. How does the collective unconscious sort of, how is that implied in this particular scenario, or is it?
Well, it's not really. I'm coming at it as an anthropologist, and for cultural anthropology, symbols, are hugely important in our lives. I mean, we're symbolic creatures, but we're also, I think, infinitely flexible creatures. And while the idea of these archetypes of the collective unconscious, these sort of mega symbols that we're just born with, and that sort of they're just universal, I can't get with that idea. I think that the dominant symbols in a person's life have to be very personal symbols. Now, they may take an archetypal form. I mean, the most powerful symbols in your life may be very, very similar to the most powerful symbols in the lives of people from your community and your culture. I mean, that's very, very possible. So yeah, a lot of the symbolism in your dreams and the symbolism, the deep symbolic structures that motivate you and that give your life meaning and structure, yeah, they may be very similar to those of other people in your community, in your culture, in your family, whatnot. But I think that it's possible for a person's symbolism to be very unique and very idiosyncratic. And I think that, frankly, the most powerful symbols in our lives are very, very idiosyncratic, very personal kinds of things based on, our early life experience for the most part. And, I mean, the idea of archetypes, it's a nice idea. There's nothing wrong with it. I just think Jung oversold it. I mean, like a lot of geniuses, he took his pet idea and he wanted to make it apply to everything. And I think that's normal. That's fine. I mean, every genius does that.
Great. I wrote a whole book on the trickster archetype, and now you're saying that it's, maybe.
I'm a big believer in the trickster. I just don't know. Totally. I mean, yeah, on some level, archetypes are we can talk about archetypes. I just don't know that they have the kind of, I'm not sure that they interact with the world in the way that Jung wanted to make them interact with the world, particularly in his book on synchronicity. I think that's where it kind of breaks down somehow, because there's
he overstepped his.
I think he overstepped, and I think he just got things backwards. I think that he was trying to sort of make the archetype, which is his pet theory, make it sort of be the driver of these events.
Right.
Okay, let's drive this.
Yeah.
With Gina and Chris, you're in.
You're good.
The Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
Have you ever felt like the United States government knows way too much about your financial affairs? I continue to hear stories about property seizures, frozen bank accounts, confiscation of stocks and bonds. It makes me wonder if the U.S. citizen will ever again have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unfortunately, with the Drug and Money Laundering Act, the IRS Revenue Ruling 6045 of 1984, and the Trading with the Enemy Act and Franklin D. Roosevelt's Executive Order of 1933, some precious metal holdings are subject to government intervention. For this reason, Midas Resources has prepared a report explaining the boundaries of trading precious metals privately. Whether if you have any intention of trading with Midas Resources or not, I have instructed my representatives to give this report out free. Call for your free copy at 1-800-686-2237. When investing, always proceed with caution. Again, call 1-800-686-2237. Exercise your legal right to trade metals privately. 1-800-686-2237.
There's a man named Dr. Joel Wallach who is anything but your typical doctor, both a veterinarian and naturopathic physician. Doc asks, why does the United States spend more money on healthcare by far and still rank 50th in health and longevity worldwide? He believes that people should empower themselves with a basic understanding of nutrition, take charge of their health, and attain optimal health and longevity through nutrition, not by toxic prescription drugs that lead to side effects and more toxic prescription drugs. Doc Wallach's message is resonating with an increasing number of Americans who are waking up to all the big government, big pharma, and big insurance manipulation of our healthcare system. I'm George Norrie, and I like what Doc Wallach is saying and doing to enlighten people about health care. Visit criticalhealthnews.com and listen to Dr. Wallach's Deadly Recipes lecture. It makes a lot of sense, and I urge you to join our Critical Health News team. Go to criticalhealthnews.com. That's criticalhealthnews.com.
If you constantly feel run down and tired, your pH level might be low and your body could be full of toxins. If what you drink is not at a pH level of 8 or higher, you are inviting bacteria and acid to thrive in your body. But there is something you can do. Simply add 10 drops of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops to your water to help your body rid itself of acidic waste, increase oxygen, and raise your pH balance to optimum levels. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops combine a unique formula of the most alkaline minerals in the world, alkalizing the water you drink, ridding your body of acidic waste and toxins, and helping you regain energy and vibrant health. And studies show viruses, bacteria, and toxins cannot survive in an alkaline, high pH environment. Order your bottle of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops at alkavision.com. That's ALKA vision.com. Or call 269-409-1776. 269-409-1776. Alkalize your body. Supercharge your health at alkavision.com today.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
All right, we're driving ourselves crazy here trying to judge reality with Eric Wargo. And this is going to be one of the most fascinating episodes because the mind is the limit, not the sky's the limit. The mind is the limit. Now, what I understood about Carl Jung early on when he wrote his book about UFOs is that we all created collectively the reality of UFOs.
I don't think he completely said that. I mean,
he said it represented a mandala of completion within the collective.
Well, it's the way it was understood and taken by people at the time.
Yeah, well, this is, it's the same as with his book on synchronicity. He tells different stories. He's
obtuse.
Yeah, and he tells different stories. And sometimes, the archetype is just a reflection of what's going on in a person's unconscious. Okay, I'm down with that. I'm down with the archetype is kind of a mirror, Well,
I'm also down with your idea that the archetypes don't drive things. I've always kind of felt that the whole idea of collective symbols that are shared around the world are more mechanisms than anything else. And that's why when people say, well, what is the trickster? Is it a bean? Is it a coyote? Is it a spider or what? And I say, no, it's a mechanism that ties inexplicable events together and creates, topples static structure as a result and creates change, room for change and creativity within culture. It's kind of cut and dried that way. Mm-hmm. But man, you're dissing me, man.
No, I'm just saying that the trickster. The only way I would dispute what you just said is I would say that instead of saying the trickster is a mechanism, I would say the trickster is a symbol of maybe a mechanism.
Well, same thing.
I mean, that's right. That's all I'm saying. I think that the archetype is it's a way of representing consciously representing.
It's a label.
Much more, something much more fundamental and something probably unconscious that we can't consciously fully grasp. So we need these simplified concepts to get a handle on them and to maybe make them work in our lives, or at least enable us to form hypotheses or whatever. So we need them. But like in the case of synchronicity, I think that it's an epiphenomenon of what is really going on. And what's really going on is just this mysterious relation to time that we don't really understand, and that goes against our sort of the basic models that we sort of have to work with in real life. We have to make certain assumptions, like that A causes B, because 99% of the time A does cause B. So when B causes A, we're going to misinterpret that, and we're going to tie our head in knots trying to figure out how to make A cause B, when in fact, no, it was B causing A, because there's a certain.
Most people, that'll just go right over their heads, and they won't realize that B was causing A. And it's only if you're aware of that as being a possibility that you can even comprehend and recognize it.
Right, exactly.
And that's really important.
And that's what you're right. And that's what I wrote about actually really in my most recent blog post. I don't know if you read it, but I'm basically saying that you have to, for this to work and for this to even manifest, you have to take a certain interest in it. And you have to be open to first noticing these deviations and anomalies, and then ultimately you've got to really be really motivated to find them, and that itself will act to sort of bootstrap the mechanism of aligning your life with these kinds of events. I'm just sort of drifting into the zone of power of law of attraction, kind of basic New Age philosophy. But I think
but it is. It's a snowball going down a hill.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's important, for people out there that are interested in possibly taking Eric up on his suggestion. You got to keep a dream journal. You have to write things down that have meaning to you, and you don't understand why. Yeah. If something gets your attention and it doesn't particularly at that moment make sense why it's grabbing your attention, write it down. I mean, everybody's walking around with cell phones and tablets, and we have laptops. I mean, it's very easy to keep a dream journal. It's very easy to write down a date and I can't believe this thought that I just had. Most people are lazy and they don't want to take the time to do things like that. But if you're really interested in becoming part of a solution to some of the deeper mysteries of consciousness, work a little.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, it's you've just got to start to pay attention to this stuff.
Let me throw something out here which takes us back to a more physical level. Okay, so we are seeing events that happen in the future. We're seeing our own future. Does that extend to the past that precedes us or not?
Are you saying, I'm not sure.
If we can see in the future, it has to be our own future. We can't see the far future when our descendants are seeing something, nor can we see something in the past before we were born.
I would suggest that this effect I'm describing would operate in all directions. But the thing is, we're seeing something in the past. We're going to assume that it's just a memory. It's not going to occur to us that, this information is reaching me through some other channel than just my own physical memories.
Yeah, so deja vu, Gene, would be an example of what you're talking about.
I wanted to define this. But okay, So if we're seeing things in the future, can we physically travel to the future or to the past? What's your opinion?
My opinion is, at least for the purposes of what I'm talking about, no. I'm trying to create, part of what I'm trying to do is to come up with as parsimonious a theory of the most baffling, one of the most baffling phenomena in human existence, which is synchronicities, and come up with a parsimonious theory that doesn't require it requires a minimum of phenomena to come in and help explain. I'm not saying physical time travel isn't possible, but I'm saying you don't need it for what I'm saying.
Now, one explanation sometimes for synchronicity is, it's just coincidence.
Sure.
It's like you'll get 3 hole-in-ones, but never do it again for the rest of your life. Or anything where things sort of just align. Things align. Like, for example, we were talking about a particular guest who might be on next week's show. And that particular second, I didn't even know he was online, he posted a message in our forums.
Mm-hmm. Well,
my favorite one was from Charles Fort. The guy goes fishing, loses his wedding ring, and comes back to the same dock 30 years later, is fishing, catches a fish, cleans a fish, and there's his wedding ring inside the fish. That's one of my all-time favorites.
That was a very fishy thing to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that that's a very fishy thing to happen, and I'm not sure I believe that story. But
that's 2 bad jokes in a row. Let's continue.
Yeah, well, so you're saying that one was downwind of the fish market, huh?
Oh, very much so. But, really close to the fish market.
Charles Fort. I mean, you can't go wrong with old Chuck,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that.
Well, it's a good one.
Yeah.
If it's real, that's a good one.
It's real. It definitely is. Yeah, there are some synchronicities that I have read that I struggle to fit into my model, but they're not that many. One of them that still troubles me is the one that Jacques Vallée talks about in his, I think he talks about it in Messengers of Deception.
Oh, the Melchizedek one?
The Melchizedek, yeah. That to me is really astonishing and clearly astonished him. Although even there, I realized it would actually fit into my model if,
Let's explain how it fits into your model in our next segment.
Okay.
Eric Wargo with Gene and Chris. You're in
Paracast. We are the premier independent talk radio network, the Genesis Communications Network, GCN.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKEsoft.com. Lemkesoft.com. LEMKEsoft.com.
By now, you may have heard a bit about Bitcoins. But did you know Bitcoins are now over an $8.5 billion market? And did you know that over 65,000 businesses now accept Bitcoins? Listen, if you're already earning Bitcoins or trying to make money in the Bitcoin market, you've got to know bidbit.co. Why? Because bidbit.co is where you can easily receive Bitcoins by selling and auctioning off your own personal items or promote business products and services for Bitcoins. You heard right. Whether personal or business, you can now buy, sell, and auction your products and services quickly, easily, and securely for Bitcoin at bidbit.co, the first and only marketplace website to offer Bidbit Escrow, a proprietary technology which gives buyers and sellers security and peace of mind because all transactions are protected. Start today. It's free to join, free to post, free to auction, and free to bid at bidbit.co. Buy, sell, bid, or auction everything Bitcoin. That's www.bidbit.co, bidbit.co.
You pick pick up the receiver. With your heart racing and sweat dripping from your forehead, you finally muster the courage to dial the number to call into your favorite talk radio show. It rings once, twice, and then...
Hello, it's GCN. What's your name and the state you're calling from?
Surprised you got through, you squeak out.
Jason from Minnesota. Please hold.
As you patiently wait for your turn, you begin to daydream about being a famous talk radio host and what it would be like to have your own show.
Jason from Minnesota, you're up.
Millions of loyal listeners worldwide waiting to call and talk to you.
Caller, are you there?
Cheering crowds surround you, calling out your name.
Jason! Jason! Going once, twice. Okay, we gotta move on to the next caller.
You blew it.
Huh? Wait, no!
Interact with the host you're listening to right now, online at gcnlive.com. Click on the community link. Engage with other listeners. Ask questions. Start debates. Don't agree with the host? Let them know. Be a part of the community at gcnlive.com.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
Hi, this is Joshua P. Warren, author of The Poor Man's Paranormal, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Explain to us this item from Jacques Vallée's book, how it fits into your model, Eric Wargo. But before we do that, I did hear from Jacques very recently, they're working on a new UFOs and Antiquity book with Chris Aubeck. So he's not focusing on the current stuff right now. Now, please go ahead, Eric.
What I'm waiting for him to do, I'm really waiting for volume 3 of Forbidden Science. I really hope it will be coming. I hope there is a volume 3 in the works, because his diaries are unbelievably great. I don't know if you guys have read them. But okay, to answer your question about the Melchizedek thing, which he also talks about in his journals, basically, first of all, he sees, this name Melchizedek all over the subways. I think it's in Paris. He sort of finds out that this is a UFO kind of cult, UFO group. It's sort of international. He winds up studying this sort of as part of his research for his book, Messengers of Deception. And then he's, I forget what the circumstance was, but he was taking a taxi cab home, or taking a taxi cab to a studio or something where he was going to record something. And the driver of the taxi's name turns out to be Melchizedek. And it turns out that there's only one Melchizedek in the LA phone directory. So, the odds against this are just astronomical. So, and that clearly had a huge, huge impact on him. But here's my proposal. And I'm not saying this is what happened, but it could fit into my model in the following way, that the precipitating event here was the coincidence of a cab driver named Melchizedek, after having done a research project on Melchizedek, and that astonishment echoed back in time and primed him to see the name Melchizedek on the subway walls to begin with, which set him on the whole course of studying UFOs. So it'd be like a time loop, like sort of the feedback loop, time loop kind of thing that I'm discussing. That maybe the precipitating thing here was the cause of his whole path over the course of those however many months or years.
Why would the name Melchizedek have such a profound impact on him? Just seeing it, on the plate of a cab driver.
Because it had an impact, because he'd just done all this research on Melchizedek, because he saw it on the subway wall and he noticed it on the subway wall because of a future coincidence. So I'm saying, yes, it is like a closed kind of time loop. I know, I mean, it's totally illogical and totally defies logic.
Well,
like,
it's
science fiction land here.
Yeah, it's what's cause and what's effect, basically.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's the question.
Chicken and egg. Yeah. Yeah. But that's, again, I'm tossing that out there. I'd hate to, I hope Chuck Valet doesn't hear this because he'd probably think that was stupid. But, that is the way that it would work in the system that I'm proposing.
Well, I tell you, I've had some synchronicities in my life that, have always puzzled me, and I'm constantly, on the lookout for these things, and especially synchronicities that may tie into the whole idea of precognition, thinking about somebody they call. Everybody's had that happen at one point in their lives, I'm sure. That's a fairly common one. Thinking about somebody and then running into them. I had a interesting synchronicity where I had a college friend of mine I hadn't seen in years, and within 1 week I ran into him 3 times, including twice in Manhattan and once passing each other on walkways in the Minneapolis airport. I mean, what are the odds?
Right.
These things do happen. I think there is some sort of clue there. I think we're dealing with, as you said, a chicken and the egg type scenario. There may be some hidden causality going on that we're not aware of, that may be bass backwards from the way that we would normally think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the most basic kind of synchronicity that you mentioned, where you think of someone and then like 10 minutes later you get an email from them or you run into them on the street or whatever. I think that's the easiest to explain using the precognition model that I'm saying, because it's basically exactly the same thing as what happens in one of Dean Radin's experiments. Which is, often it's someone that you don't run into every day. So there's like a real surprise factor, or, wow, I haven't seen that person in 10 years, whatever. And that emotionality, that salience, that emotional salience in your day, it sort of stands out. It echoes back in time, 10 minutes or 20 minutes or, whatever. And so you have that thought, and that's what stimulates the thought. Because we assume that our train of thought, again, it has that linear causal direction. That we think of something, or we have a thought, or we have an emotion. Well, it must be because of, we just assume that it's because of the forward flow of events in our daily experience. But I'm saying that some of these, on an unconscious level. Information from the future, if Dean Radin and all those guys are right, then on an unconscious level, we are receiving information from the future. And it's going to percolate up into our consciousness in all these different ways by stimulating, a certain thought, or getting us to, have a certain emotion, and we're going to miss it because we're always looking backwards. We're always assuming that the causality is in one direction, and that there's not a more complex story.
Well, that kind of brings me to the question of why don't we see more accurate prophets and prophecy? You would think that there would be people possibly on some level that would be tapping into this particular structure or scenario, and would be able to then effectively use it, whether by design or by accident, to prophesize future events. Prophets, by and large, don't have really a very good track record. And the ones that do are so general and so kind of open to interpretation, like Nostradamus and a few others. What was her name? Not Mother Jones. There was some woman prophet, I think, in the Middle Ages that actually was fairly accurate. But shouldn't we be seeing more prophets prophesizing and blowing people's minds and ending up in the National Enquirer?
That is a hugely important question. And I've actually thought a lot about this, and I've written about this on my blog too. I think there are actually some good reasons why prophecy is really rare, and why these kinds of psi abilities, particularly precognition, are not manifested more obviously in our lives. And it goes to Well, one way of thinking about it, again, I like to think about, the Frank Herbert universe. He used a very interesting literary device to explain why prophecy is unreliable in a world that includes more than one prophet. I think it was Dune Messiah, there's a plot to assassinate Paul Muad'Dib, who has this oracular vision, and so these plotters, to mask their plot from Paul, they involve in their plans a guild steersman who himself has oracular powers, and this essentially cloaks their activities from Paul's ability to see. Well, I think that something like that actually is operative. If everybody was a prophet, if everybody could see the future, but also
I'd hate to be a bookie.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, the point is, everybody's freely willed action would negate the value of that information. It would be mush. It would be useless, and so we would evolve a barrier, essentially, to receiving that information, because it's 99% of the time going to be wrong. So why let that information even into your consciousness if it's going to be wrong most of the time? You don't want that. You don't want to be seeing the future in a universe where everybody is freely willed and can affect that future. And that
sounds like a very interesting thought for a science fiction novel. Maybe somebody's written it already, where everyone sees the future, and there's got to be lots of crazy, humorous situations that arise from it. I'm not going to write that novel. But we do have Eric Wargo, who probably won't either. And Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Free from the shackles of corporate America, we're the place for independent thinkers. GCN.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
For over 5 years, you've been hearing about the Berkey guy, so you may know a few things about him. For example, you are well aware of the superior quality and effectiveness of Berkey water filters and accessories. But did you know the Berkeys have had independent lab tests done to prove just how effective they are? It's true, and he can email you the test results. Just visit goberkey.com. You may also know that the Berkey guy has helped tens of thousands of people get better prepared. Now here's something you may not know. GoBerkey.com has amazing specials and deals all the time on a wide variety of survival and preparedness products, most ready to ship same day. Visit the Berkey Guy at GoBerkey.com and be sure to click the red Products on Sale Now button. You can always call toll-free 877-886-3653. Again, that's 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com, home of the Berkey Guy.
Attention taxpayers. If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 877-345-7645. That's 877-345-7645. 1-877-345-7645. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately at 1-877-345-7645. That's 1-877-345-7645. 1-877-345-7645.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
Hi, this is Nick Pope. You're listening to the Paracast.
With Gene and Chris in the Paracast, this has been a fascinating journey.
Well,
to the past, the future, to multiple realities with Gene and Chris and Eric Wargo. Chris?
Want to hear some precognition?
I want to hear some precognition.
Go ahead. Say it again.
I want to hear some precognition.
Oh, well, I almost had a very talented wife from Sweden, very talented psychic, but she left before we met. True story.
I've never heard that. That's good.
True story, bad joke.
Hey,
I liked it.
Compared to your jokes, pal.
I don't tell jokes.
No, here's another good one. It's a Steve Wright joke. Talk about an interesting comedian. He'll stand there in front of a huge audience and go, all right, how many people out there believe in psychokinesis? Okay, raise my hand.
I miss Steve Wright. He was awesome.
Yeah, he was good. I ran into him on a bus once, and it was like Woody Allen. The very fact that I recognized him freaked him out, and I could tell he thought maybe I was an axe murderer or a Mark David Chapman type, or he was just really, really uncomfortable that I knew who he was. And
you remembered him at all, unless you were a stalker.
Well, I've always loved his joke. Everybody's science is so concerned with the speed of light, and it's so important. I want to know, what's the speed of dark? And you know what the answer is? The speed of dark is how quickly consolidation of the media is occurring by corporations.
Oh, okay.
Getting very close. They talk about liberal media, and they haven't a clue when they talk about it.
I hate to get political here again, but hey, Dick Cheney's got a heart, so we can all breathe easier now.
The problem is, whose heart?
Right.
Yeah. That's a scary thought. Well, would you go hunting with the man?
I wouldn't go hunting with anybody, but that's just me.
Good thing he uses birdshot. Dang.
Yeah.
Well, we're in our last segment. Eric, obviously, we're going to have you back on the show. This is the kind of thing that really I look forward to. I love all these subjects that we cover, but when we start talking about real cutting edge thinking in terms of reality, how it's set up, the blind spots that may exist within our model of consciousness, reality, our perceptions, chicken and the egg issues. This is the kind of stuff that I really, really enjoy talking about. And I'm going to be keeping an eye on your blog. And I would really like it if we could get you back on the show. We've had some questions on our forums from Jeff Davis and others who are fans. You do have some fans here at the Paracast. And, this is why the Paracast, I think, is important, because there aren't many people like you out there willing to get on the radio on a show like this and talk about these types of very, very progressive, complicated subjects. And anytime we can get a guest like you on here, I'm happy about it, and I really want to thank you for being on. What are some of the projects now that and some of the thinking? Where is it leading you? What are some of the things that you're kind of progressing towards? Do you think?
I just saw Ex Machina the other night. Have you guys seen that movie yet? It's
what movie?
Ex Machina, the new science fiction movie about it's by I forget the name of the who the director is, but he the screenwriter of 28 Days Later and a few other movies. But it's this really excellent science fiction movie about a sort of a Silicon Valley tycoon type who creates an artificial intelligence and artificially basically a conscious female android, and he brings this employee of his to his remote lab to basically spend a week with this female android and sort of give it the Turing test, essentially try and sort of convince him that she's conscious. And it's really a smart,
wow, nice,
really cool movie.
And who plays the android?
Oh, she this very pretty. I think she's a Swedish actress. I forget her name, but it's really a good movie. And I have. I'm usually really disappointed by Hollywood, treatments of, questions about AI and stuff like that. But this really, I thought, did it quite well. But
let me give you some basic information. The movie's open in limited distribution. It got 89% rating at Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty high.
That is high.
It's pretty good. Director is Alex Garland. Okay.
Right.
If you want to know more, just getting all that information. It opened on April 10th. Again, I know it's playing in the Phoenix area of Arizona. You kind of have to look at where it's playing in your particular city.
I'm sure it'll hit Redbox soon enough if it's in limited release.
Right. Well, in any event, the reason I bring that up is that I think I'm really interested in this question, obviously, of consciousness. I think all of us who are sort of in thinking about these things, we really want to know what's going on with consciousness. And an idea that I've sort of been toying with for a long time, and this synchronicity series has kind of led to this, or led back to it, is that we might be using the wrong word when we're talking about consciousness. When we're talking about, first of all, for a model for sort of uniting my sort of mental phenomena and physical phenomena, a lot of anti-materialists are trying to talk about consciousness. People like Deepak Chopra and stuff, they're always talking about consciousness. And also, the AI community, they're talking about, creating conscious machines, and should we create conscious machines, and what will happen, and is it possible? I think that consciousness is the wrong word. I think that it presupposes this kind of cold, logical, kind of self-conscious I don't know. It's sort of a computer almost term. And I think what we're really looking for is something more emotional, something more about enjoyment or bliss, or these are topics I talk about a lot on my blog. Something that's much more a feeling, and that's really the basis of what we should be looking for. And that if we're looking for some concept to unify, physical models with psychology,
you got to coin a new word. Do an Alexander Haig on us and come up with a new word. Culture only moves forward at the pace of the language.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So so I think I'm going to have some posts upcoming on that.
Do like a crowdsourcing thing, do a contest. What word would you suggest that has to encompass these things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That means consciousness, but consciousness is not, is too cut and dried and is limited.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I always come back to words like bliss and ecstasy, because I think that there's some fundamental, when mystics, when they dive deep in meditation or whatever, they always report that the fundamental field of, it's not consciousness. It's this bliss awareness. It's like this there's a blissful quality to it. And, this gets.
Well, how about extra nirvana bliss?
There you go. I love it.
I love it. And I think we have to wrap it up here.
Okay. Extra nirvana bliss.
Okay, guys, we have to wrap it up, but we could go on for another 6 hours. In any case, Eric, tell our listeners where they can find more of the stuff that you write about.
Okay, my blog is www.thenightshirt.com. It's The Nightshirt, all one word.
We have a link for that, by the way, over at the Paracast.com. So if you don't remember thenightshirt.com, you take a look at the Paracast.com. When you click on his name or tap his name, depending on what kind of device you're using, you'll get there and you'll learn things that you never expected to learn before.
Sometimes it's like a hair shirt, reading some of this stuff. It's pretty
The hair shirt.
Well, he's going to get that domain. Just wait for that. Okay, you can find us on Twitter. We're known as the Paracast. Look for the Paracast on Twitter. We also have 2 Facebook fan clubs. Don't get started with how you make it one. We know how to do it, but you lose one in the translation. We also have that other radio show called After the Paracast, and here's how you get it. You join up the Paracast Plus at plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. And when you do that, you have an option of a monthly subscription, a 1-year subscription, and a 5-year subscription. If you go for the 1 year or the 5 year, you get a free copy of the ebook version of Stalking the Tricksters from Chris O'Brien.
Now obsolete.
Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. This has been a fascinating episode. Eric Wargo, we want you back. Thanks for joining us on the Paracast.
Well, thanks, guys. This was totally fun. This was a really fun conversation. I would love to come back.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.